Now, if you wanted to hear something crazy, let me pound those horse teeth a little bit. And I'd be making all kinds of tunes out of that piano. Though, Miss Pam did do a little bit of teaching me when I was younger. I never got to complete it, but I got really good at Mary Had a Little Lamb. It got so much that me and Cody used to drum it on the back of our heads when we wanted to aggravate one another. Mary Had a Little Lamb. And same as always, next thing you know, it's up to a knuckle dust. Brothers for you. What I want to talk to you tonight is about a few people in the Bible. They decided to choose the thing in this world rather than the things of God. Now, as I talk about these men, this is just as well can happen to any of us that come to church. Any of us that are in the service, whether it be from the janitor all the way up to even the pastor. Now, it's sad when those times happen, but it can happen to anyone. The thing about it is keeping ourselves sharp. How do we do that? Well, simple. The same way you keep a sword sharp or a knife, pocket knife, you name it, you use a whetstone. Now, if you've ever seen an axe whetstone, it's roughly about the same size as this. The thing about it is that the whetstone just sits there. It'll dry out. Not keeping oiled up, not keeping cared for, and it's basically useless for nothing because you're not using it at all. So how do we keep up the fight? Well, we keep our minds sharp on the whetstone, which is the Bible. So we're going to talk about a couple of these guys, and we're just going to see the different ways that they kind of just turn their backs. Not all of them just straight up left, but they were happy in their situation they were at. They weren't interested in growing further or leaving. They were just, as much as if I were to take a piece of wood and set it on the log. Set it on the bench there. It's there. But, y'all just bow your heads, pray, get this started. Dear Lord, thank you for tonight. Thank you for just keeping us safe, allowing us all to get back here, and just watch over the pastor as he goes, and with everyone else that's with him as they're down there in the Preacher's Delight Conference. Just give them safe travels, and just keep them safe as they come back to us. Bless the services tonight, and just allow me to give them something that be working on their heart, and know it always does well for me, Lord. In your name, amen. So, we'll start off simply. All right, we got our good Christians. Now, I love these people. You ever seen like Brother Ruckman? Now, he gets up here, he's high energy. Yeah, I'm using him. Great, but I can think of anyone. Look at Brother Mark. Look at Brother Zorn. Do we always just get focused on the other men that are out? I mean, is it one of those things that we have forgotten about those men that work here tirelessly, day in, day out, just going? Did these men on the walls do great things? They did amazing things. The ways that they paved roads for us in the futures. I mean, there's stuff. Ben himself, when you get older, Ben, there'll be roads that they pave for you that you'll still be walking down. But what happens to us a lot of times is that the devil will blindside us. You ever seen a horse that's got those blinders on the side of his eyes? You know what they're for? It's so he doesn't get spooked on that side. The devil puts those blinders we can't see around us. Well, we got those men of God here that God personally put in our lives. This wasn't by accidents, happen, chances. They're there. You know how we can help them? We can get here when the doors are open. And not come in dragged in looking like the old dog down the street got a hold of the rabbit. But just come in with a smile on our face. All right? I could give you some instance of, this didn't actually happen, but like I set the backhoe on fire, nearly blew up my brother, and we barely made it home. But I still want to come in with a smile on my face. I've got nothing to be worried about. I'm back home at that church. Like I said, Brother Steve, I'm that rat. I done come right back again. I'm back at the cheese and I'm happy. Now, that being said, God did give me and my brother a tremendous blessing. And that was, I.T. totally smashed a deer. I'm talking about Bambi come out in the road and Bambi's no more. But here's the thing. all it messed up was at the very bottom of my truck, just a little bit of the plastic at the bottom. I smacked it going 65. We were on the highway. It was shade, then deer. But I wasn't worried about it. I got back into church. I've been thinking about this all week. It's just an honor for me to get up here and for Brother Mark just to ask me to be up here. Brother Steve back, when we first started coming back, he put me in charge of children a little bit at a time. And at first I didn't know what to think. I ain't never dealt with children since I was a child, basically. And just little by little I've stayed in here, and things just keep getting better. I have found my wife here. We're going to have our firstborn child here. It's just been great. But now, the little twinge of this is I was someone that was somebody here. I had turned and walked off. And this first one I'm going to talk about, this was something very similar to me. Now, due to this fact, and we'll discuss a little bit further of where this can wind you up, but in 2 Timothy chapter 4, and we'll start up a little bit at verse 8. Actually, verse 6. Now, the verse I want to get to is verse 10, but I just love, these are some of my just most favorite verses. Now, you give it to me, I like it. But when there's just ones that just stick out to me, it's these. It's something that if God gives me a chance to actually have just a slow end, to be able to be laid in bed and say these things. And it says, "For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day. And not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. Do thy diligence to come shortly unto me. For Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world, and is departed unto Thessalonica. Creations to Galatia, Titus, until Dalmatia." Anyway, right there, that first part of verse 10 is "For Demas hath forsaken, having loved this present world." This is something that the devil, and he usually does this most on someone who just got in, they're new to it, they're fresh, and they don't quite have it grounded. Now, none of us have it fully grounded. We're not just bolted into the floor as soon as we get saved. But it's, y'all ever watched moss grow? It rises up a little bit and clings on, rises up and clings on. As we read our Bibles, we go to services, we just go out, we talk to people, we knock on doors, we do all those services of the Lord. We start rooting ourselves a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and getting more firm and more firm. So what the devil tries to do is before that tree can get really good, strong roots in, he comes in and immediately tries to cut it out. He comes at you with things that you used to do, stuff you turned from, those things that we all know the Donut King. All right, so tonight that'll be our great temptation for this. Well, you get one of those, whichever particular flavor is your favorite. Miss Pam likes the chocolate-covered regular donuts. Mom likes the Lon Johns. I like the donut holes, jelly-filled, donuts, whatever. You give me donuts, I'm happy. As long as it's Donut King. They spoiled me. I cannot eat anywhere else now except for Donut King. But that's put in front of you, and you're on a diet. And you're not supposed to touch even the first drop of sugar. Mind you, I've already messed that up today. But that temptation's there, and it starts drawing you away, and before you know it, you're looking like a coon hung over the trash can eating a donut. I've been watching my squirrel again. If you ever watched him, he sits there and he got his hand held and he just nibbles at it until it's all gone. But what happens to folks is they start longing after those old sins. And they get drawn out. Each time, y'all have heard other preachers talk about it, as you get closer and closer pulled to that door. First you start on the front row, then you're in the middle row and your back row, and the door's swinging when the preacher looks up. You start lusting after those things of the world. How do we keep from this happening? We keep our sword sharp. We use that grindstone. We use that whetstone. How many of y'all have ever seen a grinding wheel? I got to use one time. And that's the one that grants respect, because that's that when you've gone wrong and God comes to call you back. Because for these people, when they go away and they go back into the world, it's not just God cuts them off and that's the end of it. They don't speak to each other anymore. They don't see each other. They might visit on the weekend. God starts drawing you back. But what happens sometimes, if we get so stubborn, hard-headed, it's what I want to do. It's better for me. It's whatever it is, it ends with I or me. Well, God has to go from that whetstone, which you decide to put down, He pulls out that grinding stone. Now this vehicle that's carried over halfway across the country and back's suddenly breaking down, and it's all brand new parts stuff. This thing had run like a tank. Now you've suddenly got these other bills that were once easy to pay off and stuff. These are those curses and those problems and those troubles that we bring on ourselves. God uses that chastisement, and He starts grinding at us, trying to, you know what He's doing? We like to think that we're being ground into powder. But if you've ever seen a battery terminal, what that stuff will do is it'll corrode. Get all this nasty green gunk all over it. Well, what you got to do is you got to take these little type of grinding pegs and wheels and stuff, and you clean off all that. That's what the Lord's doing when He's trying to call you back. When you've turned your back on Him for the things of this world, He brings that grinding stone. He starts sanding off all that corrosion that's done built up on you. And He gets you tender. Next thing you know, you wind up like me. It gets to where when you wake up, all you think is church, grace. That's every day I'd wake up, and that's the first thing no matter what memories I might have lost here, no matter what memories I might have given up here, Grace Baptist always come back. Now, I've had trouble remembering people's names. If you've known me for any length of time, you know I am terrible with names. I'm sorry, if I just call you brother for the first year I know you, I have nothing against you. It's just there's my secret. But now, two people I never forgot were those sitting right back there, Miss Pam and Brother Steve. Those were names that were etched into my head. Why? Because God used them as a way to draw me back, keep my memory fresh. Well, I got back, and I turned back away from the world, and the Lord just started blessing. Little by little, the more I went into it, the more He blessed me. Now, it won't be long, I'll have my own little bit running around. We'll see what happens with him. But then we get some of these people, and when I say people like this, I'm not meaning it to be mean. I hold nothing against them. It's just they've turned away, and that corrosion hasn't gotten on them, and they're blind. Those me's get you. Well, this other one, he's someone this is like someone who's saved, but they've gotten worn out in the fight. And I'm going to use a verse now in 2 Kings chapter 20. Now, those of you who are familiar, I see why they do that now. I've learned something. You got the lapel on? Can you hear me now? Good. I miss that commercial sometimes. At least that didn't have some type of weirdness in it. It was just a guy, can you hear me now, walking all over the place. But this is getting towards the end of old Hezekiah. In verses 16 through 19, chapter 20 of 2 Kings, if I didn't get all that out right. Now, to catch you up real quick, if you're not familiar with it, he had went and brought these people in. He showed them all the wealth of his house. Now, these people, the simple bit, if you ever got any great amount of change in your pocket, good amount of money, suddenly these folks show up and they're your best friends. That happened to the prodigal son. I guarantee you. He comes in the town, got a big old bag of gold on him. Maybe that'll help. Can you hear me still? Better? Worse. Anyway, you get these friends. They're your go get you anything you want. Billy, thank you. We'll stick with this, if that's all right with y'all. Do I have a magnet on me? Well, whoa. We're in grace. Got this muted, Billy. Got that muted. We all mute. Let's do that. Anyway. Sorry. But these people, they just want you for what you got. The devil uses them to drag you further in. You see, they start bringing you and showing you new items, things that you wouldn't normally run into, stuff that you wouldn't normally do. It starts off with them just speaking kindly, whispering in your ear. Well, he had done shown these men everything. In verse 16, and Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the word of the Lord. Behold, the days come that all that is in thine house, and that which thy fathers have laid up in store unto this day, shall be carried away into Babylon. Nothing shall be left, saith the Lord. And thy sons shall issue from thee, which thou shalt beget, shall they take away. And they shall be eunuchs in the palace of the kings of Babylon. And then said Hezekiah unto Isaiah, good is the word of the Lord which thou hast spoken. And he said, is it not good if peace and truth be in my days? This was someone who was still in contact with the Lord. This is someone who's still talking. I mean, he's right there speaking with the man of God, and he tells him all that's going to happen. And his reply is, as long as I have a good time, I'll be fine. This is one of those other times that we turn our backs on God, is because we get tired of the fight. Once again, we take our whetstone and we lay it away. And then we get tired. We get burnt out. We're in the pews, but we're staring at our toes. We're flipping through the pages. We're pulling the phone out of our pocket and digging through whatever emails we got on the side. Whatever these are, whatever it may be, is that we're just gone. And what happens is just what he talked about with his boys. What happens with our children is we get tired of fighting. Next you know, we're reading maybe on a Monday night after church. We've done gotten all worked up and we've thought about it. We'll read it. And then it goes back to collecting dust. It goes, well, I remember those old country songs I used to listen to when I was a teenager. I think I might just, so on, so forth. Well, what it gets to be is, well, as long as preacher's still happy with me, pastor's still good with me, they saw me Wednesday night. That was a blessing for them, I bet you. And then that's it. If your children say, oh, I don't feel like going, all right, go play your games. But it's not even as simple as just, you don't feel like it. God has given us a call of assembly. Now, what that means is his doors are open, our doors are closed, and we're on our way in. He didn't say, if you feel like it. He didn't say, if you thought about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I've woken up before. I tell you what, I was real smart. I went playing football with the boys, and I'm finding out how old I am. I rolled the ground. I rolled my ankle. I freaked Miss Kate out a couple times because I caught my foot on something, twisted sideways, and I kissed the floor. But every time I woke up on Sundays knowing I'm going to be out walking, or the Wednesday nights I'd done been at work all day and using that same ankle to push the lever and go down, back up, do this. And it was, wouldn't you know, it wouldn't be the fun time. Danny wants me to be the monkey man. I've climbed everything in Colquitt. Well, I still sore, worn out, and I couldn't help but think about getting here. You know what happened soon as I got here? That smile got right back on my face, and I didn't even notice my ankle till I was at home in the bed. And Thomas jumped on it. If y'all know who that is, that's my cat. He's a real fun one. But he decided I'm not going to bother trying to make any preparations to help my children. He decided I'm not going to try and point them. I mean, if God had just told me that because of what you've done, everything, you're going to have a nice, happy life, you'll die old in the bed, and that's the end of it. But your children are going to fall out. Your children are going to wind up in a whirlpool of sin. I'd at least seen, if it had been possible, Isaiah would at least taken the boys, adopted them. I'd rather have, if I knew that was my thinking, I'd rather have my children, my child, sent to this church to be raised up by the pastor, rather than just let him go out into the world. You know what happens when you throw a minnow out into a big old piece of water? Sure, he'll swim along for a little bit and be fine. It won't be long until something comes along and drags him down. These men, they've been blessed, and they've been blessed. I mean, think, old Demas was with Paul. I mean, how many of y'all would love to actually be able to stand there and listen to Paul? I've heard the saying of he's never met someone, it wasn't his friend. I imagine Paul was one of those, he just go up to, he sees someone, he's at the next one, he's at the next one. I mean, let's say he's 50 years old and you're 20, he's done run you into the ground. Can't keep up with him. He's what you call an old school leather lung preacher. How do we know that? That little boy fell out the window because he got too bored. Yeah. In his own right, that boy turned his mind off of what was being told to him. Because it was more important that, man, it's past my bedtime. I got to count sheep, drink drool. What happened to him? He fell out of the window. Thankfully, God used even that as a way to just spur on further, add more wood to that fire. I've come into this church dog-tired, but every time God will add another log on that fire to keep it going. Why? Because he's that fella, and my wife, and she's going to get after me for using her so much. She doesn't like it when I do this. But my wife is, Miss Melissa, you're right there with her, so I'm just going to let that know. They are wonderful people. But they are hard-headed as a bull. And how I mean by that, you drop a napkin on the floor, they're going to come pick it up for you. I have headbutt my wife trying to pick up a napkin. You offer them help, and they say, no, I got it, but they're lifting up a 50-pound weight on their back. Now, that didn't actually happen. I wouldn't let my wife do that. But what I'm getting at is they're awesome people. But here's the funny thing about that headstrong is, yes, when my wife won't sit down and rest after her feet are sore and stuff so I can cook for her, and yes, I do cook for her, it's not as good and it's black, but it works. I eat that, she gets a sandwich. But anyway, but that hard-headedness will make her keep wanting to cook, even if she's sore on her feet. You know, God does like a stubborn head. God does like a hard-headed preacher. Now, there's only one person I've ever seen that can butt heads with my grandfather and not only turn him around but completely win, other than my mother, my grandmother, is Brother Steve here. Why? Because he's a good old-fashioned hard-headed preacher. See, if you're not hard-headed, you'll wind up just like Demas. Someone will say, if you get rid of that jacket, get some blue suede shoes on, get some type of goofy tie, look like a clown, we'll give you money, you'll have popularity. Those things of this world get to calling you out. Now you think, oh, well, I've been in church for some odd years, and I've been in this, I've done that. The devil knows every single thing you like, what draws you, what leads you astray. I mean, I've been getting my head hammered in with the Bible, and I've been enjoying it all these years I've gotten back. But even then, the devil still sits there and wags every old temptation right in front of me, hoping I'll just completely give up and walk off. What happens, and we're going to get to the end of those that Once the devil gets you away and you keep running, you'll start to sound almost like this man in Luke chapter 8. Now, in chapter 8, verse 26. Those of you, you're probably very familiar with this. This is the madman of Gadara. Now, I'm not saying that a saved individual is going to be possessed, but the world will make you dumb. It'll make you blind. It'll make you deaf. To the people that you used to trust without a doubt, when they would tell you something, you'll be completely deaf to them. You'll be just like this man. That world bring you down and it'll drill you in, grind you up so fine that if you don't look to the Lord, that if you don't pray, that if you don't read your Bible, you'll sound just like this man. You'll be running through the streets, screaming your head off. You'll be in all kinds of diverse sins. Why? Because you let your blade dull. Now, going further, you took your helmet off. You took your armor off completely. You dropped the shield. You're not even polishing any of it anymore. For those of you who want to know what I'm talking about, Benjamin, Sunday, Ephesians, armor of Christ, buddy. Be ahead of the others. We'll get there. But we take off that armor when we leave the church, not because God strips us of it, but because we just get tired of wearing it. But you know what I love? And through Jesus' ministry, he gets these great blessings that he gives us. Is the leper's healed. The blind see again. The deaf can hear. You know what that is? It's when you get out there. As you may wind up blind. If you're a welder, you look at that light and you go cross-eyed and you go blind. But no, what I mean is spiritually deaf, spiritually blind. You can be so numb to it all that when the Lord comes and smacks you in the face spiritually, you don't even feel it. You're not even fazed by it. You're just interested in my own self. What do I want? You see, it's never a, what do I need? That's just the excuse we use. It's what I want. See, a lot of times we get upset with God because he gives us what we need instead of what we want. Just like sometimes a child screaming in a store doesn't need a talking to, doesn't need a toy. You just swat them one time and move on. Sometimes we just need that good lick from the Lord to keep us in remembrance. There are just pages of people that the Lord blessed, and he blessed, and he blessed the Israelites. Think of Moses' time. They'd get a blessing, then they'd fuss. They'd get a blessing, then they'd fuss. Yeah. Just like us, we get something great from God. We get a bonus to the paycheck. We get some great reward. And immediately we start thinking, me. If we aren't careful, because one thing I tell the children all the time is something in boxing called a wind-up punch. It's a trick shot. And what that is while you get jabbed with one arm, you twist a hook straight up to the chin. I warn the children that the devil does this to you. You're sitting there, and all the things you know, all right, I'm not supposed to say bad words, I'm not supposed to disobey my parents, I'm not supposed to... Well, then we forget about those things that he slipped in over the years. You want to see something, just how tricky the devil is? Do some history. Look through America's history, and you'll see as it degrades each time. Each time a parent gets tired and lays down their armor. Because you understand that if you are a parent, that armor you have on is not just for you. God gives it for your family. And when we decide to put our armor off, we leave not just ourselves, but our children exposed to it. See, a lot of times he's not wanting us ourselves to just drop our arms. He's wanting us just to step aside. Because if he can get the next generation, that's what he wants. He's not after us ones that have done. We've run most of our race. Now, God's not done with us until we're with him in heaven. But if he can get those young ones, then they can turn the thought a little more. He can get them to think about it less and less. You don't think that can happen? Look at the Israelites. Again, I'll use them. I mean, have you ever taken a stick and tapped a boulder and water come flooding out? Do you ever walk out in the morning and it's raining bread? Have you ever seen a mighty water just part for you? Now, they went by faith. And thank God that that faith saw them through. Sometimes it took some of the others to come and whoop them. Moses had to get after him. Aaron had some troubles. It goes all the way up until Jesus. Then it goes all the way up to today, and it'll go on for however long this world goes. Is Christians, they go against the Father. They get whooped, and he pulls them back. Guys, when someone turns their back, you know what the devil does to us? He puts this thought in our head of, well, they're just some backslider and they weren't no good to start with. You realize the devil's just got us? Because we're not going up there. If we wanted to be, if we want to say we're friends, they want to say that they're our brothers and sisters in Christ, are we running out there to try and drag them back in before they can get out into that world? Or are we just, oh well, put our hands in our pockets and we walk away? There are people that I myself know that used to go to this church, many of them. And some of them I've caught up with. And because I wasn't willing to get after them, I wasn't willing to try and hook them back, they're so different now that they look more like that madman than Demas did when he first left. Some of them, they have gone so far that I didn't even recognize when they first walked up. But you know what? I didn't turn my back on them. Why? Because I'm hoping they'll come back one day. There's been a couple of them I've been able to talk with. And I just prayed that the Lord will start drawing them back, that they'll start listening. Because as you may think it, being that madman is not even as far as it goes. We can go down so far, and it's something that I had feared before, was to actually cause someone to go to hell because I acted so much like the world. You see, I picked with the kids before about certain little ways that they act. I've told them about how I used to sit with Brother R.T. back when he was teaching children's church, that I would act up on them, play around, run around, just like they do me. Now, that don't mean it's a shootout at the OK Corral in there. It's just kids can be active. We have our work cut out for us if you look at our past, honey. Anyway, but I tell them that you do wise to listen now. I'm not some future teller. I can't just gaze into a mirror and say this is where you're going to end up. But you see, the funny thing about those roads, those old, those dirty, wretched paths, they all go the same way. If all you're interested in is lying to everyone you talk to, then the liar is what you'll be at the end of the road. If all we want to follow is those, what are mine? What can I get out of this? What's the point of me doing this if it's not profitable to me? I tell them, I want to be that signpost a little ways down the road telling you to turn back. Something God's going to use me that if, and I hope to God it never happens, but if they wind up in some place to where they've done turned their back and they've gone after that world, that at some point in time, just like with Brother Steve, you know something? God would send that man out to hunt me. I thought for a little while he had a tracking device one of the times he ran into me. Because every time I'd be at Walmart, it's surprising, right? Walmart. But I'd be at Walmart with my grandmother, and next thing you know, this big old hand right down top of my shoulder. First time he'd done that, the hairs got a little stiff. But then I heard that voice. I didn't even have to see him. As soon as he spoke, I knew who it was. And just like that, God put that signpost right in front of me. I almost ran into it face first, saying, come back. Now I will chase these children around with every breath I got to keep them out of trouble. But I want to at least be one of those that if they do get away, if they do get out, that I want it to be that signpost that they can say, he told me. Not because I had some future prediction. Not because I was some type of genius. I ain't. Those, I don't know who thought I was tech savvy. I don't even know, I barely know what anything of some of that multimedia stuff is. I barely know that. But I want to be able to just at least tell them, turn back. Going the wrong way. Jesus, he healed those lepers. And that's what our spirit will get to looking like. If you've never seen leprosy, I mean, you should pray fervently for those missionaries that go into those leper colonies. Because, this is, at any point in time, pieces of them will fall off. They can't sleep near fires because they can roll into it and not even feel it. That is the most physical representation I can think of a wayward soul. Because we can get so far away from God that we are rotten. So I want you all to just think, would you rather be a signpost to tell the next generation, turn back? Yeah, I know this road you're on. I've been there. I've been dragged by it. Kids, I'm going to tell you something. Isaac, look up here real quick, buddy. You know how I broke my collarbone? I decided to be disobedient to that woman right there. I didn't want to listen to her. Now, this is a simple explanation, but you know I carry that now for the rest of my life. When we as adults decide it's not important enough to stop that child that's just doing one simple little thing, oh, he's just running down the hall. There's no problem. He's just touching the glass. There's nothing wrong. But each little thing is something that the devil uses to get a little foot further in there, get a little closer to him. If we don't do as adults and stand for the Lord like we should, read our Bibles, to actually be an example, then instead of being that signpost that says go back to church, go back to God, get back where you need to be, we're telling them this way's fun, that way's fun, that way's the best. And they'll wind up with injuries that every time they wake up, they'll either have to keep them here or they'll actually be physically on them. All because we didn't want to tell them no. But I ain't going to end on just a thought. Jesus heals the leper. He heals the blind. He heals the deaf. That means no matter how far down we go, no matter how bad we get, there's always a healer, a great physician. He's just standing there, got his hand like this. And all we got to do is come back. All we got to do is return to our Savior. We might not be as slim as we used to be. If you must know, my wife's cooking is great. Thank y'all for asking. But we'll be restored to places I never thought I would be here. You see, to me, this church is family. It's not just, oh, they're like a family to me. Say that and get a big smile and, put my hand on the side and all that and just, yeah, I'm socially acceptable. If y'all have ever talked to me for 10 seconds, you know I'm just left to right with how I say things. Social is not my strong suit. When Brother Steve first got me up here on this was just like walking in a daydream for me. I couldn't believe it. I never even thought that I would even be sitting back in these pews, let alone being someone reading to a few guys a few scriptures. Then he put me in front of a crowd, then so on and so forth. Now his son puts me in front of a crowd, and just keep getting blessed. Why talk about the Montgomerys? I'm thankful to them. I say Montgomerys in general because Miss Pam is a reason that some of the things I remember, some of the things I do, was something she did. Now, just for you, don't get me wrong. My mother I could not have been given a better mother. I mean, look at us compared to her. We're ogres to just a small lady. And yet she was stronger than all three of us. But my preacher, my pastor, they have left things. Put stone down for me. That not only can I walk now, not only can me and my wife walk, but now I have a son coming. That I'll be able to run down the same path. Because when God called me back, I came back, crawled back, kind of, really. But there I was. And now I have been restored to my family, and I'm working on increasing it. So you're going to be a good signpost and lead them back to God? Or would you rather help the devil rip your family apart? We have a free will, ladies and gentlemen. Every head bowed, every eye closed.